Hello, welcome to this Love Fools episode. I'm Terry, and I am still here unpacking this amazing question that sent me on a bit of a quest. That's why I love questions. They sent us on a bit of a quest for understanding, and it was a great question because I'm a designer. I design systems that align with nature, that are life affirming. So systems that work in harmony with nature rather than moving against it. And that can be as individuals, our individual system, as a collective, or as a wider thing, how the world operates and creating systems in the world. For example, I create garden systems. But actually, what's really interesting is the same principles apply to us as individuals as they do in relationships and in projects, like creating a garden. Now, I unpacked this a really amazing question, which was, why can't people change, or why can't people reach their goals once they've consciously set a goal? Why do they fail to reach it? And it's taken 3 episodes to unpack this answer. So if you haven't caught the previous 3 episodes, you might want to, but this is going to be a bit of a summary episode. So after I have explained these all in the past 3 episodes, I've looked at individual, how we do this to ourselves, what we do to ourselves that can impact this decision to make a change, what our relationships with other people can affect this decision to make a change, and how the environment, how the world, how that we operate within can affect us making this change. So I'm going to do a little summary because I went through so much in them episodes that I just felt like actually I need to summarize this. There's quite a lot that's gone on, and there's only so much time you can fit in each episode, right? So now we've got 4 episodes around this, but I think it'll be really, really worth it. And I'm so grateful for you listening and sticking around. Hello, if anyone's watching on YouTube as well. Hello. Thank you for watching. It's great to see you. If you didn't know, if you're just listening on She Speaks or one of the other podcast platforms, you can actually go and see my face if you are so inclined and watch on YouTube, or if you're happy just listen. So yeah, there was a few things that after I'd said them for the episodes, that just kind of came back as like something to reaffirm or that needed to be added for it to make a bit more sense, whatever it is, because I think actually this question is used a lot to damage us. It's like a weird dynamic we've got where we build each other up and try and motivate each other for change, and then when we make a change, if we fail, it's then used to like beat us back down, either to ourselves or each other. But it is a bit of a habit I think we've got into in our society, in this stream that is moving us. And one of the things that I wanted, that kind of came up after I'd, especially in particularly when considering ourselves, how we treat ourselves. Often when we're trying to make a change, it is about understanding these ebbs and flows of life. It's understanding the difference between how we move and how life moves us. Understanding the difference between when to stay where you are and when to make a move. Understanding when you need to be nurturing and tolerant of your space and where you are and how you are now, and when you need discipline and a little bit more energy to move somewhere else. Navigating that, gaining the perspective of that movement and putting it to good use is really important. And that's really what mastering any sort of change in your life is about, because we can't just magically change overnight as much as we'd like to think we could, or it's that simple. It's not that simple. Sometimes things are instigated that quickly. And that's what these crisis points are, that force us to change, or, a mindset shift that suddenly makes it possible to think we can change. They can happen quite instantly, but the process of change takes a bit of time. And especially for long-term change, if we're constantly trying to move in a different direction, that we're being pushed or pulled by the people around us, by the mainstream, then it's actually just navigating these movements and finding the mastery of navigating these movements, like surfing, trying to, know when to move and know when to give, know when to push and pull. And that mastery can then be adapted for ourselves, for others and the world. So I just love how it all interconnects, and that felt really important to just bring back after everything I said, because there are all these reasons why we might make a move and then fall back to where we into a similar pattern that we had moved out of. And beating ourselves up about that is certainly not helpful. We just making the effort to move is a huge effort, and that needs to be congratulated. And once we've moved, we can never be back in the same situation we're in, because we are always moving, and we are naturally always moving. And when we choose to make a move, that is something that takes a lot more effort. It takes a lot more awareness, self-control, all these things that challenge us as humans to move out of our patterns. It takes a lot. So it is to be congratulated, and it's also to be something to be aware of, because if we do want to stick to that move, then yes, obviously we need to congratulate ourselves and understand how much effort and energy that took. But at the same time, it's like, well, if you want to move in that direction, you're just going to have to continue with that, aren't you? And yeah, those challenges can be real and difficult depending on the more momentum that we've got or haven't got as we're trying to make those moves. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that all of this is about expressing how we can and do always have a choice, and navigating those choices depending on what's best in the situation that we're faced with is like the mastery of making a change. And that's certainly more so what I talk about, especially some of the tools that I teach with life design and things. It's not about constantly going against the flow. It's about going with the flow and then realizing where an opportunity to move comes in. And seeing that, so every time we move and we gain perspective, it makes it easier for us to see these opportunities and know when and how we can move, what we're capable of, how it's going to affect the people around us, and all these different things. Because every change that we make is holistic. And I mean, and that's part of the point why, like, answering this simple question, it seems like a simple question, but the answer is so complex. And I don't even touch the iceberg, right? And I've been talking for like an hour and a half or something now about this, and trying to break it down to make it like, oh, at least my response as simple as possible to understand. But everything is connected. So not only do we have to understand how this is affecting ourselves in a system to make a change, and the effect it's having on us and on our system, mind, body, spirit, mind, or like our thoughts about things, our beliefs, body being, our physical reality, our physical condition, our physical limitations, to our spirit, which is our drives, our passions, our emotions, our like emotional response to things, how we're feeling about this movement. All of that is happening internally. Yet you've then also got the different dynamics of how the same mind, body, and spirit is affecting the people around you as well. So it's affecting their mind, body, spirit, and all of them people. So that's even more complexity to add to this decision to move, and the entire world. Not to make it too big, but the environment. So if you choose to move, you change in your environment. If you choose to whatever, like physically, we know if we like move house, it's going to change our environment. It's going to affect that neighborhood. It's going to affect all the people that live in that area. Might be in a very subtle way, but it's still going to affect them in one way or another. And it's going to affect them mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. So that complexity is what you need to be aware of, essentially, if you're trying to make a change. Because if you're not aware of that, you're not going to be able to change. And there's also an oxymoron in all of this discussion that I just want to highlight, that actually nature just wants us to flow with it, to go with it. And it's only us as humans that have this condition where we can choose to change perspective and gain more perspective and change and find change. Okay, so there's a couple other little additions to this answer that popped up after I recorded. And one of them applies to the way society is structured, right? And if we are making a change, if we want to make a change, because we have this ability as humans to choose to make a change, right? We have that self-awareness and that ability that other animals don't. That's how we've evolved. And it adds a lot of pressure, okay? That in itself, to have that choice adds pressure. If we are going to make having that choice it be pressure, to add even more pressure onto putting that choice, it almost makes the conflict of, well, why would I do it? Okay, why would I make this change when I could just not use that energy and go along? And that is also an absolutely fine choice to make. And we need to support the people who are choosing to just go along, who are choosing not to make a change, to just ride their life path how that was given to them, and that's the choice that they make. That's a valid choice. And something else that was really interesting that is linked to both the idea of how we create society and how we've adopted that as a humanity, so dealing with others, is this complex merging we have created within ourselves. Because I talked a bit about identity in the second episode. We talked about other people and how we identify. But what we've often mixed up is the way the container and structure of support has been shaped in our society is mixing up this idea of who I am, who you are, being dictated by what you do and how you move. We use that idea of what I do and how I move to value each other as to how much support that they need, or how much structure we're going to allow them, how much stability. And that makes for really interesting, challenging dynamics to navigate, because we are not just what we do, although what we do does dictate how we're perceived, and how we're perceived dictates the amount of pressure that we're under, often in society. And I just find that really interesting. And I didn't mention it in the last episode because, well, I didn't have time. I was babbling on, I was talking loads. I don't know if you caught it, but have a listen. But what we do and how we move can affect the shape of the space around us that we take up and things. And often that how we move gives people clues as to what they're going to judge us. So my point being that letting go of those ideas, that what I do is linked with who I am, and that who I am is held together by all these ideas about myself and how I respond to the world and the people around us, it just kind of creates this really open space that can be really challenging and uncertain to navigate. And that is it's a really, really big driving point of how or why we can lose track of where we're going if we essentially kind of lose track of who we are, based on the idea that we've started to do things differently. And it's really important for our sense of direction to have an understanding of who we are. It just helps the strategy we create in our mind. And this is how it's all created, all this connected in mind, body, and spirit. Because without that strategy in our mind of where we're moving to, we can be moving aimlessly, and that can make us risky, which can then affect our relationships with others. And then that can mean that we're pushed more to the edge of the mainstream, which means that we don't get as much support as we would like or need. And therefore we start to move differently again. Do you see how these choices to move and move differently really do affect everything? And choosing to move, to make a choice to change, especially if we're being pulled, vastly in a direction, can mean a lot of struggle, letting go of, disconnecting from, mind, body, and spirit elements. Physical things we're attached to, mental ideas of ourselves that we're attached to, spiritual stories and emotions and feelings we've felt for years about ourselves or about other people or about the world have to change in order for us to make this change. So any change that you choose to make, and there's a difference, a very big difference between change that just happens because of how we flow and change that we choose to make. The effort is monumentally different, and it's really difficult to do that. And once we can really understand that if we want to make that sort of change, whatever change it is, whether we think it's a big or a small change, it takes a lot of consideration, a lot of energy that we're maybe not aware of. And this is why I bring it around full circle to the first conversation I had that sparked this whole response. It's about making small steps is easier. Instead of, you might want to make a big change towards a big goal, but just consider each small step and take one step at a time and navigate the responses of each step that you've made, rather than try to take huge leaps, because huge leaps really do shake the boat, and they really do. I mean, sometimes that's useful, sometimes that's what we need to do. And this is where the understanding the journey and how we can move and when we can move is part of that movement. But just doing it in smaller, realizing that we can make one small change every day that's going to take us into a different direction, instead of having to make a huge jump and a leap, which sometimes, like I say, sometimes we can leap from there to there. Sometimes we can just take tiny little steps up the spiral staircase and around and up, and we can gain different perspectives, move in different ways, and be in different places. But it doesn't actually matter the amount of change required. The process is the same. The consideration is the same of how, whether it's a small change that has more subtle effects, or a big change that has really drastic effects. It doesn't actually matter to the ability or the way that we move, and the way that we find success when we want to make a change. I think a big difference between people who we consider successful, who we see have made that big effort in a move, and then they become these heroes, right? They become these heroes in this story of humanity. Oh, they managed to move from there to there, because we know how challenging that is, right? They tend to have done it in small steps, because what I've seen, or even in my own experience as well, when I made big leaps, it is possible to make a big leap, but it's really difficult to move in the way that is required when you're in that new space, if you haven't got used to moving in new ways to get there, if that makes sense. So we're going to go for like dancing, you might have been dancing the cha-cha. I'm not a dancer, by the way. I'm sorry. I don't know why this keeps coming up, but you might have been dancing the cha-cha. Your family might be cha-cha dancing people, and you've been in this mainstream that likes to dance cha-cha, and you decide, I want to waltz. If you suddenly leap into the waltz, because you've never done it before and you don't understand how waltzing people move, you could disrupt the waltz, right? And you might not be welcome into that. It might cause conflict. And you might just get sucked back into doing the cha-cha again because it's easier. But that's the difference. If you've been making small steps, if you've actually just started to, I'm just going to slightly alter my cha-cha into a bit more of a waltz. So every day that cha-cha is becoming a little bit more like a waltz. You kind of don't disrupt the cha-cha people quite as much. You'll make a bit of a change, which might cause a bit of a ripple, and they'll be like, oh, she's doing something differently, and I'm not sure I like the way that moves because it ruins my cha-cha. But it's not going to make as much of a disturbance if suddenly you're not there cha-chaing with everyone else. Sorry for my metaphors, gosh. But the same thing goes when you reach in the people who are waltzing. It's not so much of a big drastic arrival in that energy of the waltz if you've slowly been adapting your cha-cha into a waltz. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. There's something there about synchronized swimming. If we consider, life as a river, the life of humanity is a river, and our movements as the dance that we make through it is cha-chaing and waltzing, and you want to move from the cha-cha to the waltz, synchronized swimming it. sorry, I'm being a bit silly now, but that I think is really important to understand that change takes time. It takes a whole heap of effort, can take a lot of innovation, it can take a lot of responsiveness, and it's not easy. It's not ever easy. Even a tiny change, even one tiny change you're trying to make is not easy. So if you've made one tiny change in your life that you chose to make that change and you've kept it up, you're a hero. And the more of those changes that you've made, that you chose, that you wanted, that you've kept up, you're a superhero. And it doesn't even matter what the change is, not compared to anyone else's ideas, not compared to like what society says is heroic or whatever. Any change that you've made, that you chose for yourself, that you have, being able, and do you know what else? Sorry, this just popped in my head. Sometimes life happens to us and our changes can be going back to what we always, so we might have been moving in a certain way, right? We were like quite happily in our cha-cha family, cha-chaing, and then somebody dived in, we ended up getting stuck in a spin-off and ended up in the mamba. I don't know where that's come from, but everyone's mambering and we're like, you know what? I don't want a mamba, I want a cha-cha. And you then had to relearn how to cha-cha because someone dragged you into a mambo. A mamba? I don't know. Sorry, dance people, I'm really sorry. But yeah, if somebody's dragged you, or if you had suddenly got bounced into a whole new way of being because of, say, a trauma or because of the effects of someone else or whatever it was, and you then had to then make the same changes to get back into your cha-cha, that's just as heroic. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what direction you're moving in or how. If you have made any conscious change in your life to move and you did it, that is amazing. It really is, because we're literally designed to do the opposite. We're designed to just go with the flow, and to be human, to have that choice to move is what makes us human. And to take that choice, take the ownership over your own life. And that is how we direct life. That is how we create a new life. That's how we are bringing the magic of life into more and more existence. And it's a brilliant thing, and it takes effort. And I applaud anybody who's making a change, whatever that change is, especially if it's a change towards more love, which is the direction we might not be all moving in the same way at Love School. We might not be moving in the same dance, in the same groups. We might not be moving, making the same decisions, but at Love School, we are all making a change. We're all heading in the direction of having more love in our life and better understanding love and enjoying that journey of moving towards love, to understand better how to love yourself, to understand better how to love others, to understand better how to love the environment and world around you, all as you're moving towards more love. That's exactly what Love School is about. It's about navigating all of this complexity as you are moving towards more love. So if you've got a goal to have more love in your life and you don't know how to get there because of all these things that are happening that you think, oh God, do I need to consider all that? Yes, you do. But don't worry, it's fine, because at Love School, they've got loads of stuff that's going to help you along the way. Tools, signposts, directions, different ways of dancing that you can try. There's no dancing on Love School yet, but soon there will be. I will very, very soon incorporate some dancing into Love School. I'm going to find the right mentor to bring that in. Anyway, I am really appreciating the fact that you've listened, and especially if you've listened to all 4 of these episodes all around change and how we navigate a change in the world and in life and in ourselves. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Hello, if you've been watching over on YouTube. Hello. Super excited to be back on She Speaks, and the next episode, I'm not going to say who it's going to be with, because I have some amazing episodes lined up with some wonderful people who are all mentors at Love School. The reason I'm not going to tell you who's next is because I don't know what order I'm recording them all in yet. But I am going to be joined. The next episode is going to be another interview, and it's going to be with one of the fabulous mentors at Love School. And we're going to dive in with them and find out what their universal love language is, how they love themselves, others, and everything. Thank you so much for watching this Love Fools episode. I will see you at the next one. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Fools, where we have been exploring and embodying the universal language of love. Love Fools is brought to you as part of Love School, where we explore what it means to love self, others, and everything. For more information, come and have a look at our site, www.loveschool.uk.